Ashwell Prince struck the biggest score of his career and the highest score by anyone in the LV County Championship this summer, as Northamptonshire had another day to forget in a season filled with them on the second day at the Emirates Old Trafford against Lancashire. The home side set off on the second morning with 384 runs already on the board for the loss of only 4 wickets, with Prince on 161. Yet, in spite of having that many runs to his name, he could sit back and watch someone else take over at the start of the second day, and that someone was Jos Buttler. He'd started on 13 but was soon racing through the numbers, first taking his side to maximum batting bonus points and then well beyond. He hit 3 sixes in the space of only 4 balls at one point. The first was belted straight down the ground to end a Graham White over, while the next one, delivered by Stephen Crook, saw Buttler hit cleanly through the line to 2 perfectly good balls, which took the England one-day keeper to a half-century of 71 deliveries. In a heartbeat, the 450 was raised, and any hopes of a Northamptonshire fight-back had been quickly extinguished by Buttler, who was dominating the scoring. A 4th maximum soon followed, as the visitors were once again looking at conceding a massive score. 2 games ago, Yorkshire took them for 546 for 3 in a game Northamptonshire lost by 271 runs. And last time out, Warwickshire made 602 for 9 against them as they lost by an innings. With Prince heading towards his double ton, Lancashire were now closing in on a score of 500. Buttler scored 100 in his last innings for the county, and he would have been thinking about another one as he brought out some of his one-day shots. In 24 overs with Prince by his side, 138 runs were added to the ever-growing total, and Northamptonshire were being taught a lesson once again. What they have done all year is keep going, and Andrew Hall was rewarded for his efforts when he had Buttler caught behind for 87 with a score on 503 for 5, with Prince now on 198. He then ran his fellow countryman Hall down to third man for the run he required to bring up his 200, which had been made off 275 balls in 412 minutes and had included 24s and 3 sixes. He'd almost walked to his mark on this particular day. You can imagine a long line of batsmen queuing across to the other Old Trafford for a bat against this attack. Tom Smith perhaps counted himself rather lucky that he was in after Buttler, and it took him no time at all to start finding the boundary. With Prince happy to just bat on and on, whoever was with him at the other end had a licence to play their shots, and Smith was able to do that very successfully. He's been in great form all year with both bat and ball, and his confidence was in evidence as he took on Matt Spreagle, striking this ball well enough to clear the rope. His 50, his 6th of the season, arrived in the next over as he eased Crook away for a couple of runs to get to his half-century of 71 balls, from which he'd found the boundary on 7 occasions and cleared it once. Northamptonshire must have been praying for Glenn Chappell to call them in as the total neared 600 again. For Prince, it was all too easy. His best score for Lancashire had been made on the previous day, and his next target was to pass the 254 he made for the Warriors against the Titans at Centurion in the 2008-9 season in South Africa. With that 600 now out of the way, there was some hitting out from Smith before the declaration. Hall was lifted for another 6 before Prince repeated the dose off the bowler's next delivery as he moved past Chris Rogers' 241 as the best score by any batsman in the domestic game this summer. Then came his 250, which was brought up with a single in the same over. Prince had now faced 330 balls from which he'd hit 23 4s and 4 6s. It had been a little like a stroll in the park for him, really. Smith then fell for 79, his best of the summer, when he reverse paddled a ball from Spreagle onto his own stumps. His runs had come off 101 balls in a partnership of 140 made in 26 overs. Prince had time to get to his personal best before Chappell called them in. Rarely do you see a man celebrate a personal best. Some aren't even aware of them, but the South African clearly was. He ended on 257 after 500 minutes of batting when Chappell declared on 650 for 6 after 141 overs. So an hour before tea on day 2, Northamptonshire were finally out to bat. But to the third ball of their innings, Stephen Peters helped a delivery from Chappell to Usman Khawaja, who took a stunning catch in the gully. In a matter of moments, the pitch seemed to have changed. Richard Levy was almost out in the same way to the very next ball. It was still 1 for 2 in the third over, as Chappell then found some extra bounce to have James Middlebrook held at third slip by Smith. Both openers were out without scoring. Northants had caused problems with the new ball themselves. Remember, they had reduced their host to 33 for 3 before they made 650 for 6. Levy was now having all sorts of problems against the short stuff. Absolutely nothing is going Northamptonshire's way at the moment. They slipped to 42 for 3 when Spreagle gloved a sweep off Simon Carrigan to offer Butler the simplest of catches. The visitors have had some quite horrible days this summer, but this was turning out to be amongst the worst of them. Smith bowled Rob Newton off the inside edge for a couple to leave them on 54 for 4. And 2 balls later, it was 54 for 5 as Ben Duckett edged to Prince to give Smith his 35th wicket of an excellent campaign. You started to wonder if this was the same pitch that Lancashire had batted on. It was a very, very bad day for Northamptonshire, but it could have actually been worse. Kerrigan was close to an LBW, but not as close as Chappell, whose Yorker looked to be knocking back at least one of Levy's stumps. To his credit, this South African did fight hard as he made a 50 off 117 balls, these being a couple of his 7 boundaries. The problem was, of course, that a half-century, even from a number of their batsmen, wasn't going to be anywhere near enough for a side who are now staring a 7th consecutive defeat right in the face. In fact, they were only 1 wicket away from losing every championship match they've played so far this year. Levy was out for 59, Chappell using the short ball to very good effect to give Alex Davis an easy catch at short leg. It was the short stuff that was causing consistent problems for the visiting batsmen. Perhaps Northamptonshire just didn't have that in their armoury. Davis was called into action again to get rid of David Willey for 2, the 7th wicket falling just after the 100 had been brought up. Crook then survived another big appeal for an LBW from Kerrigan, but you fear that there may be a few more shouts on day 3. Northamptonshire ended this one on 113 for 7, which means they'll start the third day a massive 537 runs behind and still needing a further 388 runs to avoid what now appears to be an inevitable follow-on.